All right, welcome in everyone who's joining tonight for our You Ask, We Answer webinar here. You have just a quick minute for folks to get settled in. I know we've got several students signed up to join tonight and get some good information about art and design here at PLU. Just as a reminder, as most of you all know, right, for webinars and the format, you don't have to do anything on your end. No video or anything like that, but you do have the Q&A function available. So some of you students had submitted some questions ahead of time, which we're really appreciative of that. If there are other things that you can think of or that you did not get to submit when you RSVP'd, you can have those ready to go at any point. Feel free to drop those questions in the Q&A, and then I'll be able to look at those and maybe they'll get answered naturally or maybe not, but we'll spend a good half hour or so, I imagine, just kind of having some conversation and giving you all a little bit of information about art and design. But again, we'll do just a few more seconds here, let folks get going and get settled in, but we'll start pretty quickly so we can stay on time and be cognizant of your evenings though. All right, awesome. We'll go ahead and jump in then. My name is Brady. I'm an associate director of admission at PLU. My role tonight is really more as a moderator or a facilitator of sorts, more than anything else. But I am joined by Heather Mathews, who's going to give a quick introduction of herself, and then we'll kind of do somewhat of a format where there's some base information, but more so answering questions that you all again submitted or maybe you're coming up with on the spot. So Heather, if you want to go ahead and give a quick introduction of yourself, how long you've been at PLU, obviously your role there, and maybe why you chose or to start at PLU in the first place, or choose to continue to work there and teach there before jumping into the specific info you have for us tonight.
Sure. Thank you so much for the introduction, and thanks to everybody for coming tonight. I'm Heather Mathews. I have a PhD in art history. So I'm an art historian, and I teach art history at PLU across all levels. And I'm the chair of the Department of Communication, Media, and Design Arts. So we're a fairly large department with a diverse portfolio. Tonight, I'm just going to be talking about studio art and design, but we also cover the communication fields in our department. I've been at PLU since 2007, I think. And I came to PLU because I was attracted to the small liberal arts setting, and particularly to the kind of the cooperative approach that I saw across campus, and that's still true. We're big enough that we have a pretty diverse offering, lots of different kinds of things you can study, but small enough that everybody is aware of everybody else and we can work together really easily. There's lots of opportunities for joining across campus, and that's really appealing to me. I like the idea that we're not stuck in our cubbies, but that we collaborate, and that's happening in the department because it's kind of the nature of studio art, but it's happening, I think, across campus with lots of other departments as well. So that's, I think, the thing that interested me initially. I have come to really love my colleagues and my students. I think we have a really remarkable community at PLU, and that's maybe the thing that actually keeps me here.
That's awesome. Yeah. Appreciate that. And yeah, feel free to jump right on into the kind of information you had for us tonight.
Yeah, so I have a slideshow which has some slides in it. And I'm just going to go through them fairly quickly. The slides will help me to describe our programs and the kinds of things that we offer. Since I'm going to try to get through them quickly so that we can go to questions, if there's something that you would like me to go back to, just feel free to jump in the Q&A and let us know. Okay, so I'm going to try sharing again. There we go. Okay, so just realized I didn't start at the beginning. Here's the beginning. So I'm here to tell you about art and design at PLU. first of all, we have 3 different degrees that we offer. 2 bachelors of arts. One of those is in studio arts, which is a general degree where students take classes in all of the areas that we offer. So a little bit of 2-dimensional art, a little bit of 3-dimensional art, a little photography, maybe a little design, according to their interests. The BA in art history is just what it says. It's a focus in art history. Both of those degrees come in right around 40 to 42, maybe 44 hours, depending. And then we have a more intensive major, which is the BFA in design. So that's a Bachelor of Fine Arts in Design. The Bachelor of Fine Arts differs from the other 2 programs because it requires a sequence of courses in design so that you're sort of specializing in design, and that's more intensive. And then it requires a couple of additional support courses. So the requirements there are upwards of 70 hours. So it's a more demanding course that is going to kind of professionalize you in design. Alongside those 3 majors, we also offer minors in studio art, in art history, and in publishing and printing arts, which is a focus on writing and making and publishing books. So, and I just included some pictures there of students working on our various studios in drawing and painting and in book arts. The student is printing. Here's our range of studio areas that we offer. Book arts, which is pretty unusual. I did have a question beforehand, like what is distinctive about our program as a studio art program? And I would say that the focus on, well, not focus, but the availability of book arts is really unusual. Most undergraduate programs don't have that kind of a option in their programs. And in book arts, you're learning printmaking, you're learning typesetting. It's kind of a nice combination of design skills and writing. It's a little bit 2-dimensional, it's a little bit 3-dimensional. So it's a really unusual and exciting area to work in. Then we have a lot of areas that are much more kind of standard: ceramics, design, painting, photography. We do offer printmaking as well, and 3D modeling. So a lot of different things in lots of different areas. I just have a couple of pictures. Printmaking is very big in Tacoma, and one of the big events annually is a community festival called Ways Goose. And one of the big features of Ways Goose is a steamroller print. So these are PLU students who made a gigantic linoleum cut, and then the nice man in the steamroller rolls over top of it, and we have a huge print from that. So that's happening again this month, actually in the middle of the month. So if you're in Tacoma, look up Ways Goose. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll be doing steamroller prints again. So the way that the programs are structured, I won't go into this in detail. I'll leave the notes on the screen so you can see them. But basically, all of our students start out taking basic courses, learning to draw, or learning to draw again, right? Freshening up their skills, thinking about 2-dimensional design, color theory, understanding 3D design and space. And then they start with entry-level courses in ceramics or in design or in photography. And then they are able to come back and take more advanced levels of those various classes. So we require all of our students to do those basic classes. We require everybody to do some art history. And then our seniors do a senior project, which is actually divided up over 2 classes called Keystone and Capstone, where they're first proposing a final project and then completing that. And we are currently in the near final phase of the completing of the senior project. So everybody's work is due tomorrow, and everyone is in a tizzy right now. So we are looking forward to 2 weeks from now when our senior show will open. So the exhibition that comes after Capstone is a really big deal for our senior studio students. And that happens every year in mid-April. It's kind of our big departmental event for the studio and design seniors. This is a couple of years ago, one of our openings. As you can see, kind of the scale of work that we have. Everybody works really hard to submit their best paintings or drawings or design projects. And then it's a really a big formal, very professionalized exhibition of student work. I had one last point to make, which was, outside of our department, we have opportunities for collaboration across campus, but also collaboration across campus in organizations like the student publicity organization, which is called Impact, where students are working in a kind of an agency setting as designers and artists, and they're working with clients all across campus. making posters and flyers and doing publicity work. So it's a really great place for especially our design students to get some real world experience right on campus. We have a really lively student art organization called The Collective that's in the process of planning a big spring event right now that unites lots of different kinds of art making on campus. We have opportunities for community collaboration. You see a picture there at the top of our students participating in the I'm forgetting the name of the event. Oh my gosh. It is a charity event around Thanksgiving where students make ceramic bowls. And then we have a big kind of community meal in the bowls. And I'm embarrassed, I can't remember the name of the event. But that's just one example of students kind of reaching out from campus into the neighborhood and contributing through their artwork. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was opportunities for study away. I just have a couple of pictures here of students in the south of France. Our most sort of art-focused study away program goes to Aix, which is famous for nurturing important French artists like Van Gogh, who's not French, but important artists of the 19th and 20th century. And they do a really traditional studio art curriculum while they're studying away. And that's a really awesome opportunity. We're just in the process of planning that for next fall. So it's exciting to see students take opportunities to, kind of continue their art study outside of campus when they're able to. So I think that's all of the information I have here, just a list of careers and job placements that our graduates have found in case anybody's interested in knowing that. This is an overview of maybe the last 5 or 6, maybe 7 years, just things that particularly stood out, the number of people who went to graduate school, but also people who've gotten jobs in various publishing concerns or working as designers for corporations or for community organizations, just a lot of different areas that our students are going into when they're finished. So that's the slideshow that I have. So maybe we could sort of move into general questions, or I can answer questions if there are any new ones.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's pretty cool. Just commenting on the range that students have been able to find their way into, even on some of the things that are on the screen right now. But also some of the stuff that's you all get a chance to be involved in, whether it's in the community, like you said, that mealtime around Thanksgiving, and finding ways for students to get involved with something as simple as, well, maybe it's not so simple, but making those bowls and then actually filling them and having a chance to be engaged with the folks around them. But then the waste goose, I had no idea what that was. But that seems like a pretty interesting day or event that goes on. Where does that take place at?
That's at King's Books.
Okay.
Downtown.
Yeah, that's pretty cool stuff though.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Well, again, some the students that are in here, if there's anything else that you all have thought of or whatnot and want to bring up, please feel free to drop those in the Q&A. I should have a list. I know you kind of mentioned a little bit already about some of the, maybe more unique parts to our programs.
Mm-hmm.
They're maybe more difficult to find elsewhere. Some of the other questions I know that were submitted, if you could touch on what would be some of the main skills or knowledge taught or learned within the art and design major. I know you mentioned it a little bit briefly, taking classes in certain areas, but if there's anything specific that you can think of that is in regard to that skill set or that knowledge base that students get out of PLU's program specifically.
Yeah, I think the big answer that we often give for this question is, so sometimes I think there's a question that people are expecting, or an answer that people are expecting, which is about technical skills. If you were majoring in design, you're going to spend a lot of time with Adobe products and understanding how to make different kinds of images, how to work in different types of file formats, and understanding different types of graphic systems. And so that's an important part of it. But we also like to say that just in general, all of our studio art and design majors are learning through their studio classes how to problem solve. And that's kind of the big overarching takeaway that we like to think of. Art requires you to think through complex problems with sometimes limited means at your disposal to solve them. And the kinds of skills or the kinds of tasks that you're being given in studio classes force you to be creative. They encourage trial and error. They encourage experimentation and collaboration. And these are all kind of intangible skills that are incredibly useful in lots of different applications after graduation, whether we're talking about, interpersonal or just, your professional life. So I think that the big benefit to an art and design education is becoming resourceful, understanding how to use different kinds of tools to solve different kinds of problems. I think that's really important. I would say our studio and design students are also being exposed to a lot of different kinds of making, right? Not just in the department, but also through, we have a makerspace on campus. We have a design lab in the department where students can just kind of come outside of class and collaborate. They're learning to be entrepreneurial, right? To kind of practice coming up with ideas and carrying them through in class and outside of class. And it's really exciting to watch. So I think that's there is a professionalization involved there, but also it's just sort of watching people kind of develop into their most effective selves. It's really inspiring.
Yeah, for sure. There's so much that students get out of their college experience, but sometimes it's hard to look beyond what am I going to learn in class, or what am I going to, like you said, the technical skills. But as you mentioned, the ability to get involved in extracurriculars, impact, I believe you imagined, and you can even think back to some of my peers that I went to school with that were able to, make some of those flyers and that advertising and stuff that happened around campus, or friends of mine that were in the BFA for graphic design and seeing their artwork up in the university center. Finding ways to get engaged outside the classroom is almost as important, if not more important, than what you're learning in the classroom, because it's that real world application that carries students to the next step more times than not. So
yeah,
it's pretty cool though. One of the other questions I know that was brought up was an interest in potentially double majoring. How easy is that? And maybe even, are there any like common double majors that maybe you've seen students approaching or having an interest in? Can you touch a little bit on that?
Sure. I think the first thing that always comes to mind, so first of all, I should say with double majors, I showed the slide with the requirements of the two studio majors, and it's difficult to double major if you are doing the BFA. It's a very intensive program. You're kind of expected to be focusing on that. So it's, while you can take, the odd class here and there, it's really difficult to do a double major if you're doing the BFA. But if you're doing the studio art degree, it's much easier to do that. And in fact, we encourage it because you have quite a bit of space in your schedule for that kind of thing. If you're an organized student, you can definitely do a double major easily with a studio degree. And we have lots of great examples of people who maybe have a communication degree and are doing studio art because they like the overlap with design, and they're kind of trying to sort of piece that together in their communication work. We have had in the past, sort of over the time that I've been at PLU, lots of examples of environmental studies students who also want to do art. I think that there's an interest in the natural world that kind of carries over there. So a lot of our, if you're a painter and you spend a lot of time outside and looking at nature and trying to replicate it, there's kind of a natural overlap there with people who are interested in botany or thinking about the environment more generally. So that's a pretty common one I see. I've got a brand new major who is double majoring in studio art and psychology, and that's another one that's pretty common. People who are really interested in maybe pursuing art therapy or some other kind of application like that after graduation on a graduate level. So those are the ones that kind of come to mind right away. but there's all sorts of different examples, people who have religion double majors or people who have history double majors. It's pretty common. And certainly I'm not really talking about the art history major in this event tonight, but I definitely encourage our art historians to do that. And most of them have double majors as well there. So it's
Yeah.
pretty common.
Yeah, that makes sense. But the two ones are a little bit, smaller than, like you said, the BFA. Um, do you ever see folks that are taking on the BFA maybe try to have any minors that you're aware of?
Yes. And it is, if you are super clever with the way that you do things, it is possible. I would say it's possible to do a minor. It depends on what the minor is. So some of our minors are larger than others, but some of the smaller programs like religion, the religion minor is pretty straightforward. The art history minor is one that actually, if I were to choose one, I'd say most of our design folks who end up with a minor are doing art history because they already get a little bit of credit since they're taking some of the art history classes anyway.
Yeah.
So it's easier to slide that in. But it involves kind of being really smart with your schedule, maybe doing one more January term than you thought you might, or maybe a summer class if you just need to kind of get ahead on something. But it's a kind of thing that if you have the interest right away, even an inkling of the interest, then we sit down in an advising meeting right at the beginning and talk about what your goals are and get these things all kind of laid out right at the start so that you have a clear understanding of what's needed in order to achieve the thing that you want to achieve. That might be a minor, that might be a double major, it might be study away, right? Which also is, a big chunk of time that you will have to plan for, but we absolutely want to make those things possible for students who are interested in them. So I always say it just takes some planning and, thinking.
Yeah, it is very important to plan things out from the get-go. It just makes life so much easier. But thankfully we've got some pretty good academic advisors and faculty advisors on campus to help make that process as smooth as possible.
Yeah.
I think one more of the pre-planned questions that students had asked about, and I know we've talked a little bit about some of the co-curricular activity, but are there any work study or internship opportunities specific within the program or within the department that you can think about the top of your head?
So we have two areas currently that have teaching assistantships. So we've got students who work in the ceramics studio and in the photography studio, where we offer black and white photography, and that's something else I should have maybe mentioned as a distinctive excuse me, a distinctive aspect of our program. Lots of places are phasing out black and white photography. We've kept it. And that means that we need somebody around who can help students in the darkroom. So that's another opportunity for work study that's actually in the department. In terms of like relevant work outside, impact is the other really big draw, both for our design majors and for our studio art majors. There's lots of studio students who also are working for impact because there is so much need for just the kind of visual elements that go into poster and publicity design. So lots of students end up working for impact. We do occasionally have other kinds of opportunities in the department and the school first that are more sort of like a kind of, part-time designer position to work with some of the offices in the department and in the college. Those are more rare, but they certainly show up a couple times a year. So those are the kinds of things we look for students who've maybe already taken advantage of some of these other opportunities, maybe already worked with impact and know how to do some of that publicity work on their own. And then they're, ready to jump in for these more sort of like contract-based assignment type things. So there's always something, and we try to be as collaborative there as we can with students and trying to find things that fit. I'm trying to think of some good, I've had so many opportunities for interesting internships come across my desk this spring, more than I've ever seen. And I don't know what that's to be attributed to, but I have a number of students who are applying for things like the state of Washington has a a kind of cross-departmental internship program in design, where they're not specifically only in design, but including design. So we've got a couple of people applying to be designers for state agencies over the summer. And I've had a couple of requests for a book designer and a photographer. And it's this kind of thing that we get a remarkable number of requests for student artists and designers. And so that then is sort of my job, is to kind of act as coordinator for these kinds of opportunities when they show up, and they do very regularly. So it seems that there is a awareness locally, at least, that our students are doing good work and that they're, available for these kinds of assignments.
Yeah, no, it's always good to hear and know that, again, that as I mentioned earlier, that stuff outside the classroom is vitally important to putting the skills into practice and
Yeah.
getting some real world experience. And it's fun to know that there's more unique opportunities that are popping up, rather than just kind of recycling the same ones, from
Yeah.
one to the next, that students are finding their own ways, or companies are wanting to get them involved or anything like that in the local community though.
Yeah.
Let's see. I think, and you had actually just kind of started talking about this one as well, but the process, we had the list of places that students had either gone for um, graduate school opportunities or working their first like career opportunity afterwards. Um, when maybe do some of those conversations start to happen for
Yeah.
majors? Is it early on, like right away once they declare? Is it really all forced, or not forced, but focused on more towards the seniors, or what role do the faculty and the in the art and design programs kind of play in helping students find that next step? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. I'd say just thinking about those couple of opportunities that I was talking about just now,
Mhm.
those all have been more advanced students. So I actually think all were seniors. But that's not necessarily always the case. I can certainly think of examples in previous years where it's been students who've not been in the department quite as long. But we, just because, we're trying the whole, throughout the 4 years that a student is in the department, or the 2 years that a transfer student is finishing up in our department, we're always kind of thinking, we have this like professionalization as a goal at the back of the mind, right? And you're trying to think of how to keep that as a goal as you're learning these skills along the way, but you're also kind of thinking in this long-term kind of arc, like, where are you going to go? Like, what is the purpose of this now? Like, where do you want to end up when you're done? And the focus for us starts in the fall semester of a student's junior year, where they're both the design and the studio majors are taking our class called Keystone, where that's I like to think of that as kind of our professionalization class. They're learning things like how to write an artist statement. They're learning how to build a website and how to represent themselves online. They're learning about business cards and social media. They're thinking about all of these kind of sort of things that might otherwise be an afterthought that you might sort of stumble around with later, once you're like out in the world and trying to, actually become a professional. So we're having them work on those skills in that junior year class. But then in that same class, they're also proposing their senior project. So they go through the steps of developing, researching, kind of trying things out, and then they submit one piece towards that bigger project as part of our fall student exhibition. And then they give a public kind of proposal talk where they explain what their project is going to be, and they talk about timeline, and they talk about cost, and go into kind of their motivations. They talk a little bit about their growth and kind of where they've come from. So there's this whole planning and also reflection piece in that class that is preparing them for then their final semester, which is 3 semesters after that, where they then have to actually like finish the project and get it up on the walls. So that by the time they're graduated, they have a portfolio of work that is publicly accessible. They have a professional resume or a CV that they can share and feel confident about. They have an online presence. It's just all of these things that otherwise you kind of leave and are maybe caught off guard by how many things you have to have in order to sort of like present yourself for an interview or try and make yourself independent, as an artist or a designer. So we leave it quiet for the first 2 years so people can get their footing and start to actually build these other kinds of actual art skills. And then in junior years when we really start focusing on it, and then it's a constant process from that semester through to their final semester.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. But I think it's good that it's approached from the start of junior year, right? Instead of potentially some other, I don't know, programs or anything else that kind of say, hey, once you hit the senior year, we'll really do it. Well,
Yeah.
senior year goes very fast, and you're trying to apply to grad school, or you're trying to apply to jobs, or finish up that capstone, or do whatever else. And so there may not be as much time to get the most out of those 2 last years where you're shifting that mindset to, I am a young professional and I'm working on these things right now.
Right.
It's like that's actually a really big benefit, and yeah, that I don't
It
think all
works
these
great.
programs really do.
It's not to say that everybody is done on time, or like not everybody finishes everything when it's supposed to be done. There's
Right.
certainly plenty of people who are scurrying for tomorrow, but like the thought process at least has been an ongoing one, and all of these other smaller tasks that kind of build up to it have all been accomplished. So it's just this one last big push right
Yeah,
now. So
for sure. No, that's awesome to hear though. Um, that's what we kind of have right now. The folks that are with us tonight, I'll give y'all maybe another minute or so. 30 seconds. If there's anything else you'd like to ask while we're here tonight. Otherwise, we can wrap up a few minutes early. But just want to give one last ask out if there are any extra questions. If not, then we're always around to help. I know we didn't unfortunately have any students here tonight, but as you heard, they are busy and are working towards a deadline that's coming up tomorrow. So but if there are opportunities where we can get you all connected to any current students, then working with us in admission, we can always try to make that happen some way or another. But would love to just continue to get you as much information about the program so you'll understand exactly what the nitty gritty of it is and what it comes down to, and why it might be the right program for each of you though. Right. I do not see any other questions at this point, so we'll go ahead and call it a night then. Appreciate the time from our students, Heather, from you, all the good information, and even some stuff that I get to learn along the way, which is always fun because then I can share it with my prospective students. But for those of you that are here tonight, if you are on campus soon, especially for maybe our admitted student days, then the art gallery is always something to behold, and I always look forward to that. Especially as the springtime rolls around and we get to see it a little bit more. So hopefully you're on campus to see those things.
yeah.
But yeah, Heather, anything else you wanted to add before we head out?
No, I would just say I'm always happy to answer questions. My email is hmathews@plu.edu. Mathews has 1 T. It's often confusing, but you can also just look me up on our department website. I'm always so grateful for the opportunity to talk to prospective students or to answer questions. So just please get in touch if I can help with anything.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the night.
Great. Thanks for organizing.
Yeah, no problem. Bye.
Bye.